Here's a short video on how to replace your passenger side axle in your E90 BMW 335xi. This may also be the same process for the 5 Series and a lot of other different models too. The axle nut is a 36mm hex socket. You will need to also grind on the slots where it's indentured in to be able to remove it. You can try to remove the strut from the hub assembly, however in my case it didn't come off, it was just too badly rusted. So since I couldn't get it off there, I could still take off the sway bar linkage and the lower control arms, and I unbolted the strut from the tower. But make sure if you do unbolt the strut from the tower that you mark where the nuts were. This will allow you to keep the same alignment as before you took it apart. I removed my axle on accident by just yanking it. I was actually trying to separate it between the two pieces here. The reason why my axle came out this way is because the boot was still attached to it enough to where it wouldn't allow me to separate the two pieces. The way I removed the axle piece on my E46 is by welding a piece on there and using a slide hammer to get it off. I prefer not to take the axle out this way, but this was the only way that I could get it out with the limited amount of tools that I could find. So I removed the lower control arm and I tried to remove the other lower control arm, which I couldn't get that one out, but it was just enough to slide the strut tower under the fender well. If you do it this way, you have to be extremely careful not to damage the paint on your fender. This is why I don't recommend doing it this way. I recommend using a ball joint separator and separating the hub at the ball joints. I recommend separating the hub at the ball joint boots, but make sure you use a proper ball joint separator so that you don't bust the boots when you go to remove the ball joints from the hub. In this video, all my ball joints were still attached, and I had to insert the axle as I was moving the strut under the fender to carefully not damage my paint as I was putting it back in place. It's really annoying to do it this way, and I really wouldn't have done it this way if I had the ball joint separator. Here are all the bolts that I removed and had to put back. The one on the strut tower was really pointless because I wasn't able to separate it there. The one on the lower strut arm on the right, that one I couldn't get it to separate there either. But I did get it to separate at the far left lower control arm. Here you can see where I marked the strut tower to keep the alignment of where the strut went in. This just helps keep your alignment. And then when you go to install the axle, be sure to air it on. You're supposed to actually torque it down. I think the torque specs is like around 150 foot-pounds or so. And then you can indent in the spots to help keep the nut from coming off. It's a good idea to clean all the grease out of the inside of the wheel if your boot broke there. In my case it didn't, but I wanted to clean it anyway. It just helps keep it in balance and makes it easier to install the balance weights next time that you take your car to the tire shop. That way it's not so hard for them to put the weights on, and they'll actually stay on there to keep your wheel in balance. Common symptoms of your car needing an axle is that it'll be vibrating when you start accelerating. So be sure to check your axle boots because you may very well need an axle if you have vibration while accelerating. If you want to watch more videos on repairing this BMW 335xi, be sure to subscribe to this channel. I also will be upgrading my turbochargers and doing a dyno video. So if you want to see more videos like that, you can always stay tuned by subscribing.